Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have a bunch of updates to share about Donald Trump's coup clown. So first up is news about Jim Hofs and his right-wing conspiracy site, The Gateway Pundit. I shared recently that Hofs had filed for bankruptcy because of all of the defamation lawsuits against him and his company. And the plaintiffs in those cases are saying, no, we are asking the court to toss this bankruptcy, this Chapter 11 case, and for a couple of reasons. So one, I had mentioned previously that, the Gateway Pundit has enough money to pay their bills. They're not destitute. They're not struggling. Hofs attorneys even admitted that in court. The other reason is that Hofs essentially admitted he only filed for the bankruptcy as a tool because he's trying to avoid paying. He's trying to avoid these defamation cases. So two of the people who are suing Hofs, as you probably remember, and the Gateway Pundit are Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. And in a court filing, their attorney wrote, quote, "It is already abundantly clear that this case is an abuse of the bankruptcy system." So Hofs was in court a couple of weeks back. He went in to discuss this whole matter, and so we'll see what happens. We'll see what the judge decides, but they're going to make a decision probably pretty soon. Speaking of using bankruptcy to avoid facing the consequences of your actions, America's defendant was back in court yesterday, at least virtually he was. So this was to discuss his own Chapter 11 dodge. Things got very heated. As I shared recently, Rudy Giuliani had asked the court to convert his bankruptcy case, the Chapter 11, to a Chapter 7 liquidation. So he said, just liquidate my assets, go ahead, take it, blah, blah, blah. Giuliani's creditors have argued that he's using this to avoid having a court-appointed monitor of his assets, because that's what they had last requested before he made this request to just switch it over to a liquidation. They're saying, no, he wants to hide all of his new income streams from his new coffee brand, from this new podcast that he's agreed to host. So the bankruptcy committee, if Giuliani got his way, if they converted it to a liquidation, to a Chapter 7, the bankruptcy committee that was approved by the court, that was established, or I think it was earlier this year or the end of last year, that would be dissolved. And that group has spent months. They've been combing through his finances. They were on the verge of basically hitting him with sanctions, or getting the court to hit him with sanctions, because he was still refusing to turn over discovery items. So definitely, as I mentioned before, seems like Giuliani has a lot to hide. He is using this liquidation to once again avoid scrutiny. Well, about an hour before the scheduled hearing yesterday, Giuliani switched directions again, and he said, oh, just dismiss everything. Dismiss the bankruptcy, dismiss my request for the liquidation, just everything. I'm done. Giuliani's attorney wrote, quote, "The debtor has changed his position on the appropriate disposition of his pending application to convert Chapter 11 to Chapter 7. The debtor now requests that the court grant the relief requested by the Freeman plaintiffs and dismiss the case." So Giuliani is saying, yeah, just let them go after my assets. Let them come after me. So he appeared via teleconference. He kept interrupting the attorney for Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, and he kept accusing the attorney of defaming him. And then at one point, he started yelling, and it got so bad the judge threatened to cut off his audio and threatened him with jail time. So here's where things stand now. Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss are totally fine with tossing the bankruptcy case. Basically, what they're saying, is, okay, yeah, let's do it, because then we can go after his assets immediately. His other creditors, though, disagree. And the reason I think that they're at odds is because Moss and Freeman already have a judgment against Giuliani. As you all know, they went to court, they got, the judge to agree, because Giuliani didn't want to hand over anything in that case either. So, Giuliani just said, yeah, okay, I defamed them. I basically admit it. Just you judge and jury figure out how much I owe. The other people who Giuliani owes money to and who are suing him, they don't have judgments yet. So Moss and Freeman, like I said, they could immediately start collecting from him. They can immediately, force the sale of all of his assets, put liens on his property, what have you, to get that 100, or at least a portion of the 148 million that he owes them. If I'm understanding the case correctly, that would basically leave his other creditors out in the cold. They could theoretically end up with nothing because Moss and Freeman have already taken it. You can't squeeze blood from a turnip, as the saying goes. So we'll see what happens, but the judge indicated he is seemingly inclined to drop kick this bankruptcy case. So not good for the other people, but also Giuliani's creditors are asking the judge to consider appointing a trustee to investigate that supposed $2 million that Donald Trump owes him. Because Giuliani, as you guys might recall, he admitted during a deposition that Trump never paid him for all the legal work he did surrounding the 2020 election. And speaking of that 2020 election work, Giuliani's attorneys are now basically admitting that the whole election fraud argument was bullshit. Yesterday, same day as this bankruptcy hearing, Giuliani's other attorneys were in D.C. They're trying to save his law license. As you all know, his D.C. license was suspended. He is at risk of being disbarred for filing these bogus election fraud lawsuits. So Giuliani's attorneys wrote in their court filing, quote, Mr. Giuliani was representing a client in a fast-moving election law challenge that did not permit him to investigate fully his client's position as he would normally do in any other case. So they're basically admitting, yeah, he didn't actually investigate the claims that he was making in court. And so, you should give him a pass because, yeah, it was all BS and, he just didn't have time to look into it. So we'll see what happens with that. In the meantime, Papa's got a brand new bag, it seems. Right after news broke that Giuliani has been disbarred in New York, my lumpy pillow man, Mike Lindell, announced he hired Giuliani. So Giuliani's going to be hosting a show on his Frank Speech Network. I also have news about Lindell, specific to Lindell. Lindell spearheaded a recall effort against Wisconsin Assembly Speaker, a man named Robin Vos. Vos is a Republican, by the way, who voted for Trump, total Trump supporter. He refused, though, to go full-on stop the steal, election denier, full MAGA man for the cult. So they've been out to destroy him ever since. They need to get rid of him, and they've basically admitted this. They need to get rid of Vos just in case they try to commit another coup this year and overturn the election results. So their effort has now failed because the Wisconsin Elections Commission denied their recall petition. So Lindell was recently on Steve Bannon's show. This was before Sloppy Steve went to prison himself. And he whined that the commission did this illegally. And so they're going to keep fighting it. He said, we will never stop trying to get rid of Vos. So ironic, isn't it? They're all bitching and moaning about lawfare, but then that's exactly what they're doing. So anyway, let's hope Vos and his friends and family maybe rethink their vote this November. In other Lindell news, his company may be getting kicked out of yet another warehouse. MyPillow apparently received an eviction notice. They're in a 374,000 square foot facility in Minnesota. You might recall they got kicked out of another facility more recently. And the Star Tribune is reporting that the company failed to pay rent in June and July. And the company supposedly owes almost $450,000 in back rent. Now, Lindell is saying, oh, no, this is all a misunderstanding. Lindell told the news outlet, quote, There's some confusion there because one group bought it from another group. We don't have the same landlord. It was waiting on who we would pay, not if we were going to pay. Of course we're going to pay. So he's saying, the building was sold. We didn't know who to make the rent payment to, but yeah, we've got it. We're going to pay it. As you all know, though, like I said, he was not only evicted from another facility earlier this year because he failed to pay the rent there, he also got kicked off of Fox News. They wouldn't play his advertisements earlier this year, or I think it was last year, because he didn't pay them. He wasn't paying for the commercials that they were playing on their airwaves. So yeah, I mean, he's in trouble. He also liquidated, you might recall, a bunch of the MyPillow assets. He held a fire sale, basically, on all of the equipment because all of his sales plummeted. So I don't know. I think he is in real trouble. I think he's trying to deny it and ignore it. I mean, to me, it looks like he's rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. So we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted on that. Next up is news about attorney Christina Bob. Bob, as you all know, she's being sued by Dominion Voting Systems for defamation. She also was more recently indicted in the state of Arizona for her alleged part in Trump's coup. So she just filed a motion to try to get the Arizona charges dismissed. Her legal team cited the state's anti-SLAPP laws as a defense. So for anyone who's not familiar, anti-SLAPP laws, it's a legitimate way to protect people and freedom of speech, their First Amendment rights. It prevents people from being sued for basically speaking their mind, giving their opinion. I'm not an attorney, so I can't say for sure, but I don't think that Bob's conduct, her alleged crimes, amount to freedom of speech. It's my understanding she was directly and indirectly involved in the illegal effort to overturn the election. And from what I've read, she was also advising other Trump allies on how to work the system. It's also being reported she's trying to basically evade or delay her Dominion voting systems deposition. And the release of discovery items, because Bob claims, if I do this, if I sit for a deposition, it's going to jeopardize my defense in the Arizona case. Dominion's attorneys, though, are calling bullshit. And I think they have the right to do so because they asked Bob to sit for the deposition and to turn over discovery items like 14 months ago. So well before she was indicted in Arizona, and she hasn't produced a single document. In all this time, over a year, has not given them a shred of evidence. Nothing. And so Dominion's attorneys brought that up. They also told the judge there's very little overlap in these two cases. Apparently there's going to be a hearing in September about this, so I will know more then, see what the judge has to say. But anyway, another one of Trump's coup attorneys just lost in court. Kraken-related attorney Stephanie Lambert, who you've heard me mention before, she was trying to obtain Michigan election records. Some of them very sensitive. They contain private voter information. So this has been an issue. And this is part of her ongoing effort to try to prove that the 2020 election was rigged, which has been disproven over and over again. But Lambert isn't going to let this go because she is facing criminal charges for her alleged part in the breach of voting equipment. So she requested these voting records. It went before a judge. He shot it down. He essentially said Lambert's legal claims are completely meritless. Last but not least, the Republican Party has chosen some very interesting people to represent Trump in their upcoming event that they're hosting this month, the convention. So they have chosen some of Trump's fake electors to represent their states at the Republican convention this month. CNN is reporting that some of these fake electors are currently facing charges for trying to help illegally overturn the 2020 election. And the Republican Party thought these would be the perfect people. They should serve as national committee members, delegates, and alternatives at the convention. Tells you everything you need to know about the MAGA extremist party. So anyway, I will let you know if I hear any more. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, subscribe if you have not. Really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Sharing is another big way to help out with the show. If you can't donate, please just share. You can even share it by email with your friends and family on YouTube. It just really helps to get more eyeballs on this, and it tells YouTube that it is share worthy, so then they show it to more people. So truly appreciate it. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.